Hello everyone, welcome everyone to the channel's Strange Night Podcast. Story 1. Whispers in the Vault. The Mystery of the Chase Vault. After journeying through silent zones and unidentified entities, tonight we begin a new chapter with one of the most chilling mysteries in Caribbean history. This is a story that defies every law of physics and human logic. A place where death is not the end of movement. In the beautiful island of Barbados during the early 19th century, there was a burial vault built of solid coral stone set deep into the ground of the Christchurch Cemetery. This was the Chase Vault. It was designed with thick stone walls and a massive stone slab guarding the entrance, requiring several strong men just to move it. It was intended to be a place of eternal, undisturbed rest. However, for those buried within, rest was a concept that simply did not exist. The strangeness began in 1812, when the vault was opened to inter Thomas Chase. As the heavy ceiling slab was pushed aside, those present recoiled in horror. The vault had not been broken into from the outside. Yet inside was a scene of violent chaos. The lead coffins, each weighing hundreds of kilograms, had been tossed from their original positions. They were overturned, stacked on top of each other, and one was even found leaning upright against a wall. It was initially assumed to be the work of vandals. However, no valuables were stolen, and the stone seal, which had been plastered shut during the previous burial, remained perfectly intact. After rearranging the coffins, the vault was resealed with even greater care. In 1816, the vault was opened again for another funeral. Once more, the chaos had returned. The coffins were scattered across the room, as if a hurricane had swept through the cramped space. Rumors of a dark curse began to spread across the island. The governor of Barbados at the time, Lord Combermere, decided to intervene personally. He ordered a thorough inspection of the walls to look for secret passages, but found nothing. To put an end to the mystery, the governor ordered a layer of fine sand to be scattered across the vault floor before closing it. The goal was to capture the footprints of any intruder. He also used his personal signet ring to stamp the wet mortar at the entrance. In 1820, witnessed by the governor and hundreds of curious onlookers, the vault was opened for the final time. The seal was unbroken. When the slab was pushed away, the fine sand on the floor remained perfectly smooth, without a single footprint or trace of water. However, a loud thud echoed from within. Thomas Chase's coffin had been flung against the door, and all the other coffins were in a state of frantic disarray. Some had been slammed against the stone walls with such force they were dented. No one could explain how objects weighing tons could move on their own in a sealed, inaccessible space without leaving a single mark on the sand. It felt as though an invisible force, a rage from the afterlife, was screaming within the darkness. Following this event, the Chase family removed all the bodies and abandoned the vault forever. Today, the Chase vault stands empty and cold. The whispers of the dead, refusing to be imprisoned, still linger. Are there forces beyond our understanding that do not accept the stillness of the grave? Or was that vault a spatial anomaly where spirits struggled to break free from their physical ties? Story 2. The Feet Without Bodies. The Mystery of the Salish Sea. Welcome back to the Strange Night Podcast. After witnessing coffins moving on their own in the stone vaults of Barbados, tonight we travel to the cold, mist-shrouded waters of North America. This is a modern mystery that began in 2007 and continues to this day, leaving investigators and scientists struggling for a complete answer. The Salish Sea, a body of water spanning between Washington State in the U.S. and British Columbia in Canada, is famous for its majestic beauty. But behind its tranquil surface lies a gruesome phenomenon: human feet continuously washing ashore. The common thread in all these incidents is that the foot is always found inside a sneaker, and strangely, they wash up individually with no bodies attached. The first incident was recorded in August 2007, when a young girl walking on Jedediah Island spotted a running shoe. When she curiously looked inside, she screamed in horror. Inside was a decomposing human foot. Only a few days later, another shoe washed up on a nearby island, also containing a foot. Since then, more than 20 feet have appeared along the shores of the Salish Sea. Investigators initially suspected the work of a sadistic serial killer with a fetish for dismemberment. However, upon forensic analysis, experts discovered that these feet bore no marks of being cut by a knife or saw. They appeared to have detached naturally due to the process of decomposition underwater. But why only feet? And why were they all wearing sneakers? The answer lies in a combination of biology and technology. When a body sinks in the ocean, marine scavengers often target the soft tissue around the joints. The ankle joint is one of the weakest points. At the same time, modern sneakers often feature air cushions or lightweight materials that make them buoyant. When the foot detaches from the body, the shoe acts as a flotation device, protecting the foot inside from fish and allowing it to be carried by currents until it reaches the shore. While science has explained how they wash up, their origin remains a haunting void. Through DNA testing, police have identified some feet as belonging to people missing from accidents or suicides. However, many remain unidentified. Standing before the vast ocean, watching the waves crash onto the shore and wondering how many lives are still drifting out there brings a profound sense of melancholy. Each shoe that washes up is a tragic, unfinished story, a reminder that the ocean always keeps its darkest secrets. Residents of the Salish Sea, when walking along the sand today, no longer look just for seashells or pebbles. They look at washed-up sneakers with caution and awe, because they know that inside that fabric could be the final remains of someone who has forever stayed beneath the deep. Story 3. The Woman in the Closet. The Fukuoka Incident. We have journeyed through mysterious vaults and freezing seas. Tonight, we step into a smaller, more private space, but the level of terror is no less intense. This is a true story that took place in Fukuoka, Japan in 2008. A story that reminds us that sometimes the greatest threat isn't in the outside world, but right inside the home where we feel safest. Imagine you are a single man living a simple life in a small apartment. You go to work every morning and return after dark. Everything seems normal until you begin to notice strange signs. Food in the refrigerator seems to disappear unusually fast. Personal items are moved just a few centimeters from where you left them. A sensation that someone is watching you from the shadows begins to take hold of your mind. This is exactly what happened to a 57-year-old man in Fukuoka. At first, he thought he was simply forgetting things, or that his memory was failing due to age. However, when a jar of food vanished entirely and strange noises echoed at night, he decided to take action. He installed a tiny security camera in the kitchen and connected it directly to his smartphone. One afternoon, while at work, his phone vibrated, signaling movement. He opened the screen and witnessed a sight that made his breath catch in his throat. From a small storage compartment at the top of his closet, a narrow space he used only for items he rarely touched, a thin woman with long, disheveled hair slowly crawled out. She moved silently, as graceful and weightless as a ghost. She walked through his apartment with a natural air, as if it were her own home. She ate his food, even took a shower and watched television for a moment before crawling back into the compartment. Police arrived immediately. When they searched that cramped storage space, they found a 58-year-old woman named Tatsuko Horikawa huddled inside. The most horrifying discovery came during the investigation. Police found that she had been living in that apartment for an entire year without the owner's knowledge. Ms. Horikawa had turned that small compartment into her own tiny room, complete with a thin mattress and a few personal items. She had learned the man's daily routine perfectly. Every morning when he left for work, she emerged to live her life, and every night when he returned, she lay silently right above his head, separated only by a thin wooden board, listening to the rhythm of his breathing as he slept. This case sent shockwaves not only through Japan, but across the globe. It wasn't a ghost story, but it tapped into a primal fear, the fear of having one's private space violated in the most extreme way possible. A stranger had lived with you, watched you in your most vulnerable moments, and it all unfolded in the darkness of your closet. The story in Fukuoka is a chilling warning that we never truly know for certain what is lurking in the hidden corners of our homes. Tonight, before you go to sleep, perhaps you should check your closets, under your bed, or any dark space you usually overlook. Because sometimes darkness isn't just the absence of light. It is the dwelling place of entities we never wish to encounter. Story 4. The Suicide Song. The Mystery of Gloomy Sunday. Following our story of the terrifying intrusion in a Japanese apartment, tonight we explore an invisible weapon that possesses a devastating power over the human mind: music. There are melodies written to celebrate love, but there are others that seem to be woven from the threads of darkness and absolute despair. This is the true story of the most famous suicide song in history. In 1933, amidst the bleak backdrop of the Great Depression in Hungary, a struggling musician named Reggio Ceres composed a piece titled Gloomy Sunday. Originally, the composition was a lamentation regarding the cruelty of war and human sin, but the lyrics were later rewritten into a heartbreaking tale of a man wishing to end his life to reunite with his deceased lover on a Sunday. As soon as the song was released, a chain of chilling and inexplicable events began to occur across Europe. In Budapest, a man was found dead in a cafe with the sheet music of Gloomy Sunday in his hand. In Berlin, a young woman hanged herself, and beneath her feet was a gramophone record of this very song. Similar reports flooded in, individuals taking their lives by firearm, poison, or jumping into the Danube River, all shared one common detail. They had just listened to or were holding the lyrics to Gloomy Sunday. The number of victims was estimated to be in the hundreds. Panic grew to such an extent that radio stations in Hungary and later the BBC in Britain banned the song from the airwaves for decades. They dubbed it the Hungarian suicide song, fearing that its profoundly melancholic melody could compel broken souls to cross the boundary between life and death. But the most terrifying aspect was the fate of those who created it. Reggio Ceres's former lover, believed to be the inspiration for the song, committed suicide by poison. leaving behind a suicide note with only 2 words: Gloomy Sunday. Sherris himself could not escape the curse he had authored. He lived for years in torment, watching his masterpiece become synonymous with death. Finally, in 1968, he jumped from the window of his apartment to end his life. Scientists and psychologists have tried to decode the power of Gloomy Sunday. Does it contain a specific acoustic frequency that strikes the most melancholic regions of the brain? Or was it simply that, during a time when the world was filled with grief, this music became the final catalyst for those who had lost all hope? Whatever the reason, Gloomy Sunday stands as a testament to the frightening power of art. It reminds us that sound is not merely physical vibration. It can be a door leading straight into the abyss of the soul. Tonight, if you happen to hear a mournful melody echoing through the silence, be careful, because sometimes there are songs that are not meant just for your ears. They are seeking to seize your very will. Story 5. The Disappearance of the Sodder Children. Children in the Ashes. Tonight we reopen one of the most mysterious and heartbreaking cold cases in American history. It is a story that took place on Christmas Eve, a time meant for reunion and warmth. But for the Sodder family, it was the beginning of a nightmare that would span over half a century, a puzzle for which science and logic to this day have no satisfactory answer. It was Christmas Eve, 1945, in Fayetteville, West Virginia. George and Jenny Sodder, along with 9 of their children, were deep in sleep after a happy evening. At around 1 a.m., a sudden fire broke out, consuming their wooden home in less than 45 minutes. George, Jenny, and 4 of the children managed to escape. However, 5 children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, remained trapped on the 2nd floor. George tried frantically to save his children. He went to grab his ladder to reach the 2nd floor window, but the ladder that always stood by the house had mysteriously vanished. He attempted to drive his 2 trucks close to the wall to climb up, but both vehicles, which had been working perfectly earlier that day, suddenly refused to start. Every effort was met with despair. The Sodders could only stand and watch as the flames swallowed their home and their beloved children. But the true mystery began once the fire died down. After an intensive search through the smoldering ruins, firefighters and police made a shocking announcement. They found no bone fragments or organic remains of the 5 children. According to forensic experts, an ordinary house fire, no matter how intense, cannot completely cremate human bones in such a short period. Bones require extreme temperatures and several hours of sustained burning to turn entirely to ash. The Sodder family became convinced their children had not died in the fire. They suspected they had been kidnapped before the flames even started, and that the fire was merely a cover-up. Strange clues began to emerge. Several witnesses reported seeing the 5 children in a strange car while the fire was still burning. A waitress at a distant hotel also claimed to have served breakfast to 5 children matching their descriptions a few days later. George Sodder spent the rest of his life searching for the truth. He erected a massive billboard along the highway featuring the photos of the 5 children and offered a significant reward for any information. In 1968, over 20 years after the fire, the family received a letter with no return address from Kentucky. Inside was a photograph of a young man who bore a striking resemblance to the missing son, Louis. On the back was written, "Louis Sodder, I love Brother Frankie." However, every investigative effort by private detectives and police hit a dead end. By the time George and Jenny passed away, they still did not know for certain what had happened to their children. Were the children consumed by a phantom fire that left no trace? Or were they taken away to live different lives under different names? The tragedy of the Sodder family is not just the loss, but the suspension of truth. Tonight, when you look into a flickering flame, remember that there are things fire can destroy, but there are secrets that even the ashes refuse to reveal. Story 6. The Hoya Baciu Forest, the gateway to another dimension. After leaving the mysterious ashes of the Sodder family in America, tonight we fly across the ocean to the region of Transylvania, Romania. This is not just the home of vampire legends. It is also the location of a forest dubbed the Bermuda Triangle on land. It is a place where the laws of physics seem to bend, and fear comes not from tangible monsters, but from the very presence of distorted space and time. The Hoya Baciu Forest lies just outside the city of Cluj-Napoca. From a distance, it looks like any other European woodland, but the moment you step inside, you realize the difference immediately. The trees here do not grow straight. They curve, twist, and spiral into bizarre shapes, following an invisible gravitational pull that botanists cannot explain. For generations, locals have passed down a grim warning. If you enter Hoya Baciu, you may never return. Or if you do, you will no longer be yourself. Survivors who do return often recount identical symptoms: nausea, intense headaches, unexplained burns on their skin, and an overwhelming sense of anxiety, as if thousands of eyes are watching from behind the twisted trunks. Scientific attention shifted to this forest in 1968 when a military engineer named Emil Barnea captured a shocking photograph of a disc-shaped UFO hovering over the treetops. But the most bone-chilling aspect isn't the lights in the sky. It is the holes in time. The most famous story tells of a 5-year-old girl who vanished into the forest while playing. Her family and the police searched everywhere, but found no trace. 5 years later, the girl suddenly walked out from the edge of the woods, wearing the exact same clothes, her face not having aged a single day, still clutching her old toy. She believed she had only been gone for a few minutes and had absolutely no memory of the past 5 years. Time in Hoya Baciu seems to flow in a completely different stream. At the heart of the forest lies a clearing known as the Circle. It is a near-perfect circular patch of land where no trees or grass have grown for hundreds of years. Scientists have analyzed soil samples but found no toxins or reasons for the barrenness. For spiritual practitioners, this is considered a portal connecting our world to another dimension. There are reports of people seeing faces appear in photographs taken there that were invisible to the naked eye, hearing the giggles of women, or blood-curdling screams emanating from the void. Electronic devices frequently malfunction, and batteries drain to zero within seconds of entering the circle. Hoya Baciu is not just a forest. It is a living, mysterious entity. It challenges human arrogance regarding our mastery over nature. Tonight, if you plan on walking through the woods, remember that not every tree stands still, and not every path leads you back home. Story 7. The Beast of Gévaudan, the Obsession of France. Tonight, we bid farewell to the mysterious forests of the modern era and travel back in time to mid-18th century France. This is not a fairy tale, but a bloody historical record of a creature that sowed such terror that the King of France himself was forced to declare war. It is a monster whose existence remains a giant question mark for both science and history. In the summer of 1764, in the remote mountainous region of Gévaudan in southern France, a young cowherd returned to her village in a state of absolute panic. She claimed she had just been attacked by a giant beast looking like a wolf but as large as a bull. That was the beginning of 3 years of horror, where death lurked behind every bush and in every grazing field. Unlike ordinary wolves, which naturally fear humans, this creature targeted humans directly. It possessed extraordinary strength, fiery eyes, and a terrifying level of intelligence. It didn't just kill for food. It often dismembered its victims, leaving behind gruesome crime scenes that horrified even the most battle-hardened hunters. Over 100 people, mostly women and children, were brutally murdered. News of the Beast of Gévaudan spread all the way to the Palace of Versailles. King Louis XV, fearing national instability, dispatched his finest royal knights, hunters, and the military to intervene. However, the monster seemed to possess the power of invisibility. It would vanish right under the noses of the army, only to reappear in a village dozens of miles away just hours later. Many witnesses claimed they had shot it at close range, but the bullets failed to pierce its hide, or it possessed a miraculous ability to heal itself. Chilling theories began to surface. Was it a demon-possessed wolf? A hybrid of a lion and a hyena? Or more disturbingly, was it a beast trained by a sadistic killer who outfitted it with armor made of boar hide to deflect bullets? The massacre only truly ended in 1767, when a local hunter named Jean Chastel decided to use silver bullets that had been blessed to hunt the beast. He shot and killed a massive, bizarre creature. When they cut open its stomach, they found the undigested remains of a human victim. However, even though the creature was dead, the mystery remained unsolved. Modern zoologists, reviewing historical descriptions, have noted that the creature did not perfectly match any animal known in Europe at the time. Was it a prehistoric remnant or a product of human cruelty? Whatever the truth, the name Gévaudan remains forever linked to a primal fear, the fear of being hunted by something we cannot understand, and a reminder that sometimes nature can create nightmares that human weapons struggle to subdue. Story 8. The man named Indrid Cold, the Frozen Smile. After leaving the blood-soaked mountains of Gévaudan in France, tonight we return to West Virginia, USA in the 1960s. This is the origin of one of the most bizarre entities ever recorded. He is not a monster, nor is he quite human. He appears in a dark suit with a smile that never fades. It all began in November 1966. A man named Woodrow Derenberger was driving on the highway when a strange, long, cigar-shaped object suddenly blocked his path. From that craft, a man stepped out. He was tall, wearing a dark blue reflective suit with slightly slanted eyes, and most notably, a grin that stretched from ear to ear. Yet his eyes remained completely lifeless. This man never opened his mouth, but Derenberger heard a voice echoing directly inside his mind. "Do not be afraid. We mean you no harm. My name is Indrid Cold." Indrid Cold, also known as the Grinning Man, did not appear in isolation. His presence was almost always accompanied by reports of the Mothman and other strange phenomena in Point Pleasant. However, while the Mothman brought the panic of a mutated beast, Indrid Cold brought a deep, spiritual dread. He appeared in places where disasters were about to strike, standing under streetlights, peering into house windows, and simply smiling. Other witnesses recounted similar encounters. Several children in New Jersey reported seeing a tall man in black standing silently in the shadows with a frozen grin, staring at them as they played. When spotted, he would vanish with impossible speed, as if dissolving into thin air. Those who interacted with Indrid Cold felt an overwhelming wave of negative energy. They were haunted by that smile for years. Many paranormal researchers believe Indrid Cold is an interdimensional entity, an observer from another world who appears to harvest energy from human pain and fear before catastrophic events, such as the collapse of the Silver Bridge in 1967, which claimed 46 lives. Who is Indrid Cold? An extraterrestrial? A shadow entity? Or merely a collective hallucination of people living in stressful times? Whatever the answer, his grin remains a chilling symbol of something not of this world, weaving its way among us. Tonight, if you look out your window and see a tall figure standing under a streetlight, look closely at that face. If that person looks back at you and flashes a smile that is too wide, held for too long without a single blink, perhaps it is best to close your curtains and pray that you are not the next subject he wishes to visit. Story 9. Bus 375, the last bus of the night. We move away from the isolated countrysides of America to the heart of one of the world's largest megacities, Beijing. This story took place in 1995, an event that became China's most famous urban legend, where the boundary between a routine bus ride and a journey into the underworld became thinner than ever before. The night of November 14th, 1995, was a cold, foggy winter night in Beijing. Bus 375 began its final journey from the Yuanmingyuan bus station, heading toward the fragrant hills. On board were only the male driver and a young female conductor. At one stop, a few passengers boarded, the young couple and an elderly woman. The bus continued rolling through the silent night. Suddenly, the driver spotted two figures waving from the side of the road. Although it wasn't a designated stop, it was the last bus, and the weather was freezing, so the driver pulled over. 3 people stepped on. What sent a chill down the spines of the passengers was their attire. 3 men wearing long robes from the Qing dynasty, their skin so pale it looked translucent, and they did not utter a single word. The atmosphere on the bus turned frigid and heavy. The conductor tried to reassure everyone, saying they might be actors from a period drama heading home late. However, the elderly woman sitting in the front kept turning back to watch the strangers with a vigilant gaze. Abruptly, she stood up, rushed toward a young man sitting nearby, and slapped him hard, accusing him of stealing her wallet. The old woman made a massive scene, forcing the driver to stop so she could take the young man to the police station immediately. The young man was bewildered and furious that he was forced off the bus with her at the next stop. As bus 375 vanished into the thick fog, the old woman let out a sigh of relief and said to the young man in a trembling voice, "You should thank me. I just saved your life." I looked down at their feet. They didn't have any. They were floating beneath those long robes. The young man was skeptical, but the next morning, shocking news spread throughout the city. Bus 375 never arrived at its final destination. It had vanished, along with the driver and the conductor. 2 days later, police found the bus submerged in the Miyun Reservoir, dozens of kilometers away from its starting point. a distance the bus could not have traveled with the amount of fuel left in its tank. When they recovered the vehicle, they found 3 bodies in an advanced state of decomposition despite the freezing weather. But the most horrifying detail, one that authorities struggled to explain and tried to suppress, was inside the fuel tank. It didn't contain gasoline, but was filled with fresh human blood. The story of Bus 375 remains a massive enigma to this day. Some believe it was a bizarre accident, while others are convinced that on thick, foggy nights, a portal between the living and the dead opens on the road to the fragrant hills. Tonight, if you are waiting for the last bus, look closely at those who board with you. And if someone suddenly starts a fight to force you off the bus, don't be too quick to get angry. Perhaps they've seen something in the other passengers that you cannot see. Story 10. The Walking Statues. We have journeyed long and far together, from darkened vaults and mysterious seas to buses that never reach their destination. Tonight, in the final episode of this series, we travel to the most isolated island in the world, located in the middle of the vast Pacific Ocean. This is a place that holds one of humanity's greatest questions. How could a collapsed civilization make giant stone blocks walk? Easter Island, also known as Rapa Nui, is famous for nearly 900 giant stone statues called moai. These statues weigh on average between 14 and 80 tons. They were carved from volcanic rock at a central quarry and then moved across the island to stand guard over various tribes. The question remains, with the primitive technology of hundreds of years ago, how did the islanders transport these giants across rugged terrain without the aid of wheels, cranes, or even draft animals? While Western scientists have proposed theories involving wooden rollers or levers, the native Rapa Nui people have always maintained one thing through their legends. The statues walked to their positions. They believe that shamans used a spiritual power called mana to command these lifeless stones to step forward. Curiously, during archaeological surveys, many statues were found abandoned along the paths, lying on their faces or backs as if they had tripped and could never get up again. These statues possess a very specific center of gravity, tilted slightly forward. In recent years, a walking theory based on physics has emerged. Researchers experimented by tying ropes around the head of a replica and pulling from 2 sides, causing the statue to rock back and forth and shuffle forward, much like how one might move a heavy refrigerator. From a distance, this movement looks exactly like a giant wobbling along. However, the truth of Easter Island lies not just in the statues, but in a painful lesson of self-destruction. To move the moai, the people cut down the island's entire forest to make ropes and tools, leading to ecological collapse, famine, and civil war. The larger the statues became, the more the island's resources were depleted. Today, the moai still stand, eyes facing inland and backs to the sea. They are silent witnesses to a lost golden age and a stark warning about human greed and the destruction of nature. Thank you for accompanying the Strange Night podcast. Together, we have explored the hidden corners of the world, where truth is often stranger than fiction. Whether it be spirits in a closet, feet on the shore, or walking stone statues, they all remind us of one thing. This world still holds far more mysteries than we can ever fully comprehend. This series concludes here. I wish you all a peaceful night's sleep, and may you always keep a sense of curiosity for the mysteries that surround us. See you in our next journey. Good night. Thank you for listening to this series. Please like and subscribe to the channel to hear the next series.